before we go any further, what is important is let us not digress anywhere out of thought. Let us not try to compare, contrast between what you're hearing now with what you've learned before. Just let us listen to what the most Venerable Geshe Venerable Rinpoche has to say. And then later on, after hearing this so well, then you can compare, contrast, whatever. Okay, so the analysis that Geshe Rinpoche is talking about is of two kinds: conventional analysis and the ultimate analysis, pertaining to the inquiry into the object of imputation. And what constitutes the conventional analysis? So this, I try to make it very clear of what Geshe Rinpoche said. I'm not interpreting, I'm not explaining, I'm simply putting the words direct of what Geshe Rinpoche said. So there are three versions of conventional analysis. The first one is how very conventionally people talk about, okay, you are Tashi, and what is your job, and where do you come from, how long will you be here for. So this is a conventional analysis, we all agree, number one. Then number two is you have seen Tashi for the first time, or you have seen Tashi. After seeing Tashi, then you try to look for Tashi, where is this Tashi? You're not happy with just the appearance of Tashi, but you want to explore more. Whether Tashi is inside the aggregates, outside the aggregates, or the aggregates themselves are the Tashi. These all fall under the conventional analysis, number two. Number three, that even if you, after learning about the object of negation of emptiness, intrinsic Tashi is to be negated when you understand emptiness, so you pick up the ultimate, you pick up the intrinsic Tashi, or Tashi existing as self-sustaining mode, or as the self-supporting entity. So this Tashi, intrinsic Tashi, you take up intrinsic Tashi, and if you go to look for this intrinsic Tashi, where it is, where he is, you see, in the aggregates, outside the aggregates, or the aggregates are this intrinsic Tashi. If this is how you analyze, this also falls under conventional analysis. Okay, I'm reminding you again, don't try to correlate, don't try to compare, contrast, and so forth. Just let us listen to what Geshe Rinpoche has to say. So these are the three kinds of conventional analysis, and if you subject any object to any of these three analyses, you will never come to find emptiness. You will find something else. For sure you will not find emptiness. So when will you find emptiness? Is only when you subject the object to ultimate analysis. The next question is, what is ultimate analysis? So the ultimate analysis is you pick up Tashi and you want to examine if Tashi exists intrinsically or not, to see if Tashi exists as ultimately or not. Tashi existing ultimately, Tashi existing intrinsically, Tashi existing objectively, they all mean the same. So this is what you're looking for. And this analysis, where you're looking for Tashi to see if he exists intrinsically or not, if he exists objectively or not, or if he exists ultimately or not, that is the ultimate analysis. So you may wonder, what exactly is this ultimate analysis? So there, Geshe Rinpoche says that the manner in which you subject Tashi to ultimate analysis is to see if Tashi exists as intrinsically one with his aggregates, which are the base of destination, to analyze if Tashi exists as intrinsically one with his aggregates, or to see if Tashi exists intrinsically different from his aggregates. This analysis is the most appropriate, the most refined ultimate analysis. So now, to take us a little further from this, how does it work? To see if Tashi exists as intrinsically one with its parts. It says that if Tashi exists as intrinsically one with its parts, then the Tashi and its parts, these two should be identically one. For the reason that these two should exist the way they appear, these two appear to your direct perception. So this is all what I am just simply bringing the words of Rinpoche. And these are all what you find in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary, which you can read from this same book which Rinpoche already taught. So how, if the Tashi exists as intrinsically one with its parts, how Tashi and its aggregates, the parts, these should be identically one. How is that these two appear as one to the one, meaning entity-wise one to the direct perception, like your eye consciousness and so forth. And if Tashi were to exist intrinsically real or ultimately real, or as the objectively real, then it should not be deceptive. If it's not deceptive, it should appear the same way to all the other minds, like the conceptual mind as well as the direct perception. And the direct perception, these two appear as one, we call it as entity-wise one. These two should also appear as one to the conceptual mind. If these two appear as one to the conceptual mind, this is what is known as entity-wise one. Entity-wise one meaning these two are identically one. Okay, this is one part. Then the next part is that if the self exists as intrinsically different from its parts, what's the problem? Then the self and the aggregates, the parts, these two should be different the way they appear to your conceptual mind. If the self is real, not deceptive, then it should withstand the same appearance to all the minds, to the conceptual mind and to the direct perception. The way these two appear as different to the conceptual mind, to the direct perception as well, these two appear as different. If these two appear as different to the direct perception, this is known as entity-wise different. So two things simultaneously appearing as distinct, two different entities simultaneously, these two should be unrelated. Then your body, and just as others' body is unrelated to you, your body should also become unrelated to you, because these two are two unrelated entities. Yourself and your body, your aggregates, these two become two unrelated objects. Okay, this is the seeing that these are the contradictions. How to get out of this contradiction? It is by saying that the self is not intrinsically one with its parts. It's empty of being intrinsically one with its parts. The self is empty of being intrinsically different from its parts. And so what? If the self is empty of being intrinsically one with its parts, or empty of being different from its parts, entails that the self is empty of being intrinsic. Self is being empty of ultimate existence. So this is how one establishes the emptiness of the ultimate existence of the self and the emptiness of the intrinsicality of the self. This is emptiness. This is ultimate truth. Okay, this is what Rinpoche taught thus far. So this is in essence, this is what it is. Now the clarification that I'll do bring in here is that that in let's say in Nagarjuna's text, Precious Garland, where Nagarjuna's self, the self is not the earth, water, fire, air. So he categorically said that each of these elements are not the self, no different from these elements. And then also in chapter 18, the Arinnagarjuna said that the self, the self is not to be identified as any of the 5 aggregates. None of the aggregates is self, no different from the aggregates is self. Not dependent, dependee, the possession, and where is the Tathagata? Examining the Tathagata, this is how Arinnagarjuna did. So again, there we see that the Arinnagarjuna very clearly indicated that the Tathagata is not the aggregates. Not different from the aggregates is the Tathagata, not the aggregates. So all these analyses are there, what you find there. And so I personally, so in fact, many times there were so many, in my greatest of the humility, they asked so many questions to Rinpoche pertaining to this. And Rinpoche himself was extremely kind that the teaching me all these concepts all along. Even the last year was very busy. This also was very busy, teaching me all these concepts, explaining these concepts. So there, what I personally would say is that yes, what Rinpoche said, this is so precious. In fact, they all say that there are so many layers to peel from what Rinpoche taught, and oftentimes this is Rinpoche's the personality to teach things in the deepest of the analysis. For this, we cannot get to the deepest right away. So for that, for sure, it'll take time for us to get to the first layer, second layer, third layer, and every time you do this analysis, things will become clearer, and then you'll see that still there are so many layers to be unfolded of Rinpoche's reflections. So with this in mind, for us, for our easy understanding, not to see any kind of contradiction between what Rinpoche taught today and what you have learned from the other texts and from other teachers, is that, let's say that for Rinpoche, say identifying the aggregate with the self, this falls under the conventional analysis. Then, so there, in the ultimate analysis, which Rinpoche explained, taught us, is that the self is not seen as one with its parts. The self is not seen as intrinsically one with its parts. This is what Rinpoche taught. So here, the point is that where, in the conventional sense, if I say that my body is not me, that's of course so easy. How Rinpoche cited many of the statements from the great teachers like Lama Tsongkhapa himself, Kidron Rinpoche, and so forth. Yes, this body is not me. That's very easy. Your mind is not me. That's also very easy. So now the point is that, but then this is how the analysis is done in, let's say, in Arinnagarjuna's text and so forth. So I'm sharing my thoughts, and it's not necessary that you have to think that, okay, what is that? This is what bridges, again, which is reflection, the teachings with what you have learned from the other teachers and the other standard books. Don't think like this. Just see and apply this and see if it makes sense to you. If it makes sense to you, take it, and even then don't stay there. You continue to do your exploration, continue to engage in exploration analysis, and there's going to be even more unfoldings to happen. So with this in mind, what I would say is that the first, for people like us, or anyone from the street, you pick up anybody from the street with no exposure to philosophy, you ask the person that are you this person Tashi? He will say yes. And is your body your Tashi or your hand a Tashi? The person will be confused, because he knows that his hand is not the Tashi. But if he says that your head is not Tashi, then he will not find Tashi at all. So this is what is bound to happen. So now in this case, what we can keep in mind is that this person does not have the concept of what is objective existence and what is subjective existence. In this person's mind, these two are mixed up. Say, in the first place, everything that a person experiences, Tashi experiences, is his own projection. At the same time, he was totally unaware that these things are his own projection. His projection is subjective. His unaware means they are seen as objective. So these two things are mixed within his mind. What he projects and how things appear to him, these two are mixed. When these two are mixed, then when we analyze that, okay, is this pen you, Tashi? He will say no. This is, of course, conventional analysis. This is what the conventional mind validly knows, that this is not the pen. For example, COVID-19. Say you do the test, very thorough test, and okay, is he COVID patient? You can say that within 48 hours, not mixing with anybody else, and tested negative. You can say that he's not. He's not a pen. He's not a COVID patient. So this is all conventional analysis. So, with this in mind, what Rinpoche said is extremely, extremely precious. That this all fall under conventional analysis. That I'm not, my body is not me, my mind is not me, and so forth. They all fall under the conventional analysis. Now, the point is that say the self, what are the possibilities for the existence of the self? The self can exist subjectively, or the self can exist objectively. These two options are there. Failing to know that these two possibilities are there for existence, then if you ask this question, your body is the you, your mind is the you, and so forth, this all fall under conventional analysis, because the person is keeping the basic frame of mind the person has is how the person deals with the conventional world. So whereas the possibility for the objective existence or subjective existence, these two possibilities are not in the person's mind. So whereas now for somebody, this is where identifying the object of negation plays a very important role. Identify the object of negation. It does not mean that you should negate the object right there. If you already negate the object of negation, when you're doing the identification of object of negation, then you've already realized emptiness. So, identify the object of negation is to be done before you cognize emptiness, before you realize emptiness. So, for that, how is that identification of object of negation be done? Is that to let the person know that there are two possibilities for anything to exist. For anything to exist, there are two possibilities. Either it's not about whether the object exists. Say, with this analysis, say without this understanding the possibility of objective and subjective existence, then if you ask, your body is you will say no, then your mind is no. Where are you? Then the person gets lost. So the self disappears. So there's a tendency that a person can slide into nihilism. So the point is that this analysis, whether this the body is the self, the mind is the self, and so forth, without having this identification of object negation, without identifying the object negation well, then it can. So while knowing that the person, the body is not the self, that's fine, but it can tilt the person into falling into nihilism, saying that, so therefore the person is not there. Whereas object negation, identify the object negation, this is so important. If you identify the object negation, that okay, there are two possibilities. One is that things come into being, like the way the movie is projected by the movie projector, which is purely subjective. Or say the movie of let's say the flower, movie of a flower. just a movie projected by the projector. Another one, a real, say the flower displayed where the movie screen is. So one is, say, coming from the object, and other coming from the subject projector. If you're aware of this reality, yes, these two possibilities are there. Then how does the self exist? Does it exist as like movie being projected by movie, purely subjective, or independent of the subject, that it exists from the object? I have no clue, which means you have not realized emptiness. But these two possibilities can be there. Yes, that's for sure, it can be there. So this person who is 100% sure that there are two possibilities, of the two possibilities, how the self exists, I don't know. Knowing that the two possibilities there, and of the two possibilities, how the self exists, objective, subjective, not knowing, that is a phase when the person is in the process of subjecting ultimate analysis. So having identified the object of negation well, then your analysis becomes very different from how the ordinary people identifies, or this sheet. This sheet is not a book, second sheet is not a book, the cover is not a book. This analysis, and somebody who's already identified object negation well, the possibility for objective existence and the possibility for subjective existence, half-half, both possibilities are there. I'm not sure which of the two. So for that person, then the analysis can be done either by going towards the object or staying in the subject. Staying in the subject and keep exploring, that becomes ultimate the conventional analysis. Subject, subjective reality, conventional reality, they all mean the same. So whereas if you go closer to the object, after knowing that there are two possibilities, objective, subjective, two possibilities are there, then this distinction is made very clear. Say, of the two possibilities, I don't know which is correct. First, let me see if it exists objectively. So you go closer to the object. So this is what Aranigarjuna said in Precious Garland, when he said, if the mirage were to be water, why not those close by the mirage see water? So what you see, if that exists as the water, then you go closer towards it, you'll be able to see it's water. So likewise, if the person does exist objectively, then you go closer to the object to see if the person exists from the object. If you see that the person is not there from the object, this is the meaning of the emptiness of objectivity of the person. With this, now how we go about doing this? If this is what it is, then what did Rinpoche said? So, these two are unrelated? No, these two are not unrelated. This is where I'm talking about the nuances there. So there, now let's see that so let's say that the mind which goes closer towards the object to analyze if the person exists from the object, objective, intrinsic, they all mean the same. When you do this analysis, then they say there's one mind which goes closer to the object to see where this person is. That is the meaning of looking for the objective self, objective person, looking for the intrinsic person, objective person, intrinsic person, self-sustaining person, self-supporting person. They all mean the same. You're looking for the self-supporting person. Okay. And how you look? You look for the self-supporting person by sitting there in the subject, or by going closer to the object? By going closer. Without going closer to the object, no matter what analysis you do, they all fall under the category of the conventional analysis. With the conventional analysis, the way and the manner in which Rinpoche said, you will never find emptiness. It is only by exploring, by going closer to the object, only by going closer to the object, this is the meaning of looking for an objective reality. So you have to go closer to the object. The mind which goes closer to the object is known as the mind which goes closer to the object, closer to the ultimate, This is known as the ultimate analysis. Okay, so what Rinpoche says, they taught us that the ultimate analysis is the mind which analyzes if this self is intrinsically one with its parts or intrinsically different from its parts. Now, intrinsically, this word Rinpoche adds is that by going closer to the object, this is looking for the intrinsic one or intrinsic different, going closer to the object, which I cited are in Nagarjuna's the 2 lines from the Precious Garland. If the mirage were to be water, why not those close by the mirage see water? Okay, so going closer to the object, this analysis, going closer to the object, going closer to the ultimate, this is known as ultimate analysis, which Rinpoche says that ultimate analysis is the analysis which analyzes if the person is intrinsically one or intrinsically different. Ultimately one or ultimately different. Okay, now we'll see that these two are merging. How? That by going closer to the object, what do you find? Not by staying there in the subject. From the subject you move closer to the object. Going closer to the object, what do you find? You find, let's say, the aggregates, 5 aggregates. Now, there are 2 possibilities. From the object, if something does exist, there are 2 possibilities. One is that what you find is the aggregates. And the other is, keeping aside the aggregates, what is left there, different from the aggregates. These are 2 possibilities. So when you say by going closer to the object, when you see that the aggregates are not the self, this is the meaning of the self not being intrinsically one with its aggregates. Not being intrinsically meaning going close to the object, and not being one meaning that the self is not to be identified as this aggregate. Now, Rinpoche said that if the self were to be intrinsically one with its parts, the two should be identical. What is meant by that? If the self were to be findable through this ultimate analysis, going closer to the object, what you see is just the aggregates. Then aggregates and the self should be identical. Because there, the one possibility is just the aggregates are there. Another possibility is different from the aggregates. Remove the aggregates, this is another possibility to say the self exists objectively. So these two should be identical, meaning the aggregate should be the self should be the aggregate. This is one. Now the next part is, by this same analysis, if this, that's true, the aggregates are not the self, aggregates are self, these two, by subjecting this ultimate analysis, objectively or intrinsically, the two are not one. Why? Because these two are not identically one. The aggregates are not the self are not this, the self is not the aggregates, through this objective analysis or through this ultimate analysis. Okay, what's the other option? It may exist as different from the aggregates. It may exist as intrinsically different. Intrinsically different meaning objective from the object, these two may be different. What does it mean by that? So, it is different from the aggregates. Remove the aggregates. What is left? There's nothing left there. Nothing left there. So, they say if it does exist as intrinsically different from the aggregates, then the aggregates are there and the self should be here, totally unrelated. This is the meaning. If the self were to be intrinsically different from the aggregates, the two should be totally unrelated. This is the meaning. Aggregates there like the moon, and the self should be there as the sun. Should be two different, the unrelated entities. So we see that these two are the objectively different means that these two should be totally unrelated. So what Rinpoche explained can be explained so well in this connection. So all these problems are, say, some people, I would say many people failing to identify the object of negation well. What is the object of negation? They may call it intrinsic existence and so forth, but no matter what label that you give, as Rinpoche said, that no matter how hundreds of times, thousands of times you explain this, you say this word intrinsic, intrinsic, no intrinsic, no intrinsic, but in your mind you can continue to grab at the intrinsic existence. So with this in mind, identify the object negation. Without identifying object negation, if you say that the aggregates are not self, and the self is not different from aggregates, these 100% will not fall under conventional. They'll not fall under ultimate analysis. They'll all fall under conventional analysis. It is like saying that pen is not me. This is conventional analysis. So the only when the person is able to distinguish the two things so well, identify the object negation so well, that's what exists, what can potentially exist as objective real, and what can potentially exist as subjective real. In other words, that for something to exist, there are two possible modes of existence. One is the objective existence, and the other is subjective existence. Somebody who's very thorough with this, not necessarily having to realize emptiness, but if somebody is very thorough with these two possibilities for something to exist, and then on that basis, instead of let's say the staying there with the subject to see if it exists objectively, only then it becomes the ultimate analysis. Till this distinction is made, the one cannot delve into ultimate analysis. Okay, so this is a clarification, and I hope this is of some benefit. Why I'm making this the one, say the paraphrasing, or trying to bring up the summary of the Rinpoche's teachings, and then followed by my clarification, is for the reason that for sure there are many people who actually practice meditation on emptiness, and if you feel lost, that okay, what is this now? What I've been doing thus far, this all conventional analysis, this not ultimate analysis, and then you may feel that then how should I do? And some people, they really feel lost. So because of which this clarification is extremely important. In other words, with all these clarifications, and if you meditate the way the two things, how Rinpoche explained it, which is so profound, and how you find the other explanations, when you see that there's no contradiction, is only the matter of where the bridge is identified for object negation. When this is missing, then the two things will go into opposite directions. One will for sure into ultimate analysis, which is the explanation, and the other one will just invariably fall under conventional analysis and will never take one to emptiness. Okay, so with this, the point where identify the object negation well. When somebody identifies object negation well, and then you will see that there are two possibilities. One is objective, one is subjective. Then remember Nagarjuna's two lines. If the mirage were the water, why not those close by the mirage see water? With this, then you subject the object of analysis to this particular, this very precise analysis to explore going closer to this object. That becomes ultimate analysis. Whereas if you don't know this distinction, then you don't know whether you're going close to the object or staying away from the object. You don't know this. Without this distinction, then invariably we are so addicted to conventional analysis, it will fall under conventional analysis. So this distinction, okay, I hope this be of some benefit, and particularly that people who are following Nalan Master's course and Nalan Diploma course, batch 1 and batch 2, I think now things are clearer for you. If you have more questions, feel free to bring them up to office@tibetan.in, or the Nalanda Masters, the coordinators of the Nalanda Masters course and Nalanda Diploma course. Okay, and thank you, and thank you, and yes. So after practicing this, and without seeing contradiction between the two, with the practice, hopefully, there's the physiological changes can be seen. Very powerful. The physiological changes can be experienced, like goosebumps, tickling sensations, cold waves flowing through your body, and deep inside, at the core of your heart, the experience of the tranquility. When these things do happen, you are in a proper direction. Don't worry at all, you're in a proper direction. But don't remain complacent. Don't think that you already got emptiness. Nobody can hinder you from further growth. It is only this, the false confidence that I saw emptiness, I got emptiness, that can be the greatest the hindrance for your further development. This might say the one reminder. With this, then then alongside is how to see the harmony of the functionality of the world with the emptiness of objective existence. How to see this. Let us not forget what Arinigarjuna said, that those having seen emptiness, and after having seen emptiness, and your respect for the law of karma increases evermore. This is amazement of all amazement, and this is wonder of all the wonders. Let's not forget this. With this mind, see your understanding of emptiness lets your compassion grow. If the compassion diminishes 100%, you fall into nihilism. This is not the ultimate analysis. So your compassion must grow. And it is not just, say, this one-time clarification that I made that your emptiness experience becomes so clear. No, for me, all these many years, the last, my being with my Venerable Geshe Rinpoche for about like 14 years. And then after that, serving His Holiness the Dalai Lama, giving teachings to many people. And still, I see that that there are so many rooms, so much rooms for me to grow. So what I'm saying is that this is the benchmark, that your understanding, don't limit yourself to what you understand now, and see if that has a great benefit in your compassion to grow. If that is happening, your understanding is in a proper track and quite close to the actual answer of emptiness. If not, don't remain complacent. Continue your journey. Include a very profound prayers to all Buddhas, Bodhisattvas. Seek their blessings. The ultimate blessing is your studies, your reflection, and a practice of compassion on a day-to-day level. Say no to anger. Stop shouting at your mother. Stop shouting at your father. And stop all this anger and to the best of your ability. Stop the afflictions to the best you can. Stop engaging the negative karmas as much as possible. This will make the possibility for your understanding emptiness more. So with this mind, I pray that each one of you, through a concerted effort, be able to see the dawn of the wisdom of emptiness and bodhicitta within you as soon as possible, to guide as all the dear sentient beings towards ultimate happiness, to the state of fearlessness, and to the state of infinite happiness. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama, the true source of joy and happiness on this earth, that he lives long, and that his wishes be fulfilled spontaneously, particularly his wish, the legacy of the universe, the ethics, where everybody embraces each other with love and affection, without any, the animosity. May this dream, may this aspiration of His Holiness be fructifying in this world for the benefit of the whole world. And may all these learning centers of the genuine Buddha Dharma from across the traditions, the Chinese tradition, Tibetan tradition, within Tibetan tradition, Sakya, Kagyu, Nyingma, Gelo, all these the genuine Dharma learning centers, the monk scholars, the nun scholars, and the layperson scholars, and the practitioners, may they thrive, may they live long, and may they thrive in the activities of studying, reflecting, meditating, and sharing with as many other beings as possible. May the Buddha Dharma flourish in the nooks and the every part of the world. May the Buddha Dharma flourish at all times in the minds of all sentient beings, wherever they are. Thank you.